Welcome to Diplomatic Channel. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Today on the program, we'll begin the conversation on the IDF-Hezbollah conflict in the Middle East, resurrected over the last few days. Head of the Catholic Church, Pope Francis, says countries cannot go over the top in using their military forces, even in war. There is a morality to respect. War is immoral, but the rules of war indicate some morality. His thoughts over the issue may have gone out the window as Israel continues with airstrikes, this time in Yemen, targeting what he calls military targets of the Houthi terrorist regime. As of Sunday, the IDF said power plants and ports were hit in Ras Isa and Hudaydah. The IDF says it attacked infrastructure and ports in Yemen that it claimed were being used to transport Iranian weapons to the region. The strike was in response to the recent attacks by the Houthis against Israel. The Houthis claimed credit for an intercepted missile fired at central Israel on Friday. It comes as Israel carried out more attacks across Lebanon and Hezbollah fired more rockets into northern Israel. Houthi spokesman Mohammed al-Bukhati has described the attacks as American-British aggression, saying Israel is an extension of it, used as a cover to evade moral responsibility. Israel says no place is too far for its attacks. As of Sunday evening, at least 21 people had been killed in Lebanon and at least 47 more injured in a strike in Baalbek Hermel region in the eastern Bekaa Valley, based on initial death toll. In a short while on the program, I'll be speaking with international relations expert Dr. Adoyi Omale and international affairs analyst and humanitarian expert Dr. Charles Chukwunaru as we begin dissecting the issues surrounding Israel and the militant groups in the Middle East. But first, a quick check on other discussions in diplomatic circles, and we'll be right back.
Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson, Nasser Kanani, has warned it will not let any of Israel's so-called criminal acts go unanswered. He was reacting to Friday's killing of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah and Iranian Guard Deputy Commander Brigadier General Abbas Nilfarushan. Kanani says Israel would not go unpunished.
ایرانی مرتکب شده بدون توبیخ و بدون در واقع تنبیه.
Every time we have stepped up our support.
NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg says members should not be deterred from giving more military aid to Ukraine by Russian President Vladimir Putin's reckless nuclear rhetoric. He was reacting to a declaration by the Russian president last week that Russia could use nuclear weapons if it was struck with conventional missiles, and that Moscow would consider any assault on it supported by nuclear power to be a joint attack.
That the biggest risk will be if President
Putin's warnings came as the United States and its allies deliberate over whether to let Ukraine fire conventional Western missiles deep into Russia.
Then he gets what he wants, and that will make us all.
Kyiv says it wants permission to hit targets that are part of Russia's war effort.
We will take the necessary steps to ensure that all allies are safe.
Finally, Chinese President Xi Jinping says Taiwan remains a sacred territory of China and that separatist activities for Taiwanese independence must be resolutely opposed. He made the remark at a reception celebrating the 75th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China at the Great Hall of the People in Beijing. President Xi said China's reunification with Taiwan is inevitable and China alone exercises sovereignty and jurisdiction over the Taiwan Strait, part of the South China Sea.
Joining us now, our international relations expert, Dr. Adoyi Omale. He is in our studio in Abuja, and humanitarian and international affairs analyst, Dr. Charles Chukwunaru. He is in Calgary, Canada. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the program today.
Thank you, Amarachi. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Let me begin by asking both of you if you think that Israel, that's the IDF forces, is justified in its attacks on Lebanon. Dr. Male, let's start with you.
I think the key issue in the question you have asked is not whether Israel is the IDF is right or wrong, but yes, Israel has the right to defend herself against external aggression or against any existential threat to Israel. But the question a lot of people are asking is, in doing that, you also have to do it within the ambit of international humanitarian law, especially the laws that the Geneva Convention that protect civilians and other health workers or humanitarian workers, either in Gaza or in Beirut. A situation whereby a whole building in residential areas are brought down is what is giving cause for concern. Yes, Israel has a right to defend itself, no doubt, especially against terrorist attack. However, the key issue there is that in defending yourself, how do you defend yourself within the ambit of the law and with minimum casualty, especially civilian casualty? Because since the attack on Hezbollah in the last few days, close to, according to the Lebanese government, close to 1,000 civilians, including women and children, are dead. And but again, it is very difficult for Israel because we are having a kind of guerrilla warfare where you can hardly distinguish between the forces of either Hamas or the forces of Hezbollah, because they basically are operating a guerrilla-like warfare. Because of that, it's very difficult for Israel to identify the military personnel of Hezbollah, and they operate underground.
Right.
So it becomes more difficult. They mix with the civilian population.
Yeah.
So when Israel strikes, there's no way that it will not have collateral damage on the civilian population or humanitarian workers.
We'll be looking at, this impact on civilians in a minute. Dr. Chukwunari, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think the IDF forces are justified in their attacks on Hezbollah militants in Lebanon?
Well, it depends on the context. There's nothing right about war. One cannot justify killings. But having said that, your question could also be rephrased. When you give it a bit of context, is Israel right to defend itself? Right at the level of strategy or at the level of international relations, where might is power and power is right, depending on the perspective you want to look at it. From the traditional international relations perspective, a state has a right to defend itself. But at the level of morality, you begin to look at other considerations. But morality is a fast in international relations. So Israel as a state has a right to defend itself against external aggression. Hamas have been bombing Israel since 8th of October. And then when you look at international relations and legal regulation of conflict, so you begin to weigh in the Geneva Convention. Has Israel exceeded its boundaries? That's a matter for another debate. So depending on the context, yes, Israel has a right to defend itself. Morally, killings cannot be justified under any circumstance.
Now, the reason the IDF forces are in Lebanon in the first place is because, as you rightly mentioned, the October 8th attacks, the one after the Hamas attacks on October 7th, the initial plan, of course, was hitting Hamas targets in Gaza. It was also for the release of the over 200 Israelis who were taken hostage. But it does seem like, the Israeli Prime Minister is shifting focus, or maybe this was the initial plan. I don't know. There doesn't seem to be a push for, rescuing those hostages anymore. There is now, a strategy of going after these militants and going after them wherever they are, because it started also with Hamas. Now it's gone to Hezbollah. Now it's also gone to the Yemeni, to the Houthis in Yemen, the terrorists there, the militants in Yemen. They're also targeting, various structures, infrastructure that belong to, these paramilitary governments, I should say. Where do you think Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's head is, with these efforts, and put it that way, in the Middle East?
We need to understand that Hamas is a proxy of Iran in Palestine, trained and helped by Hezbollah, who is a senior brother to Hamas. By the way, Hezbollah is a senior brother to Hamas. And what is their aim? To take out Israel. They said it, to annihilate Israel.
Yes, but
in my place, they say it is only a tree that you can say, this tree, I'm going to cut you down, and it will stand and wait for you to cut it down.
Yes.
So what do you expect Israel to do?
Dr. Male, maybe you come in here because we're trying to understand where Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's head is, with this conflict. It all began with Hamas. Hamas was the one that attacked Israel on October 7. It was the one that took away hostages. It was one that still has those hostages. Israel has been bombarding Hamas targets in Gaza, and now it is after Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. And that's because Hezbollah militants did attack Israel on October 8th. Israel has not forgotten, is retaliating. Hezbollah says it will fight back. Is this an excuse, do you think, by the Israeli Prime Minister to go in to, face all of its enemies in the Middle East?
Israel will do everything to maintain its foothold, especially with the support of the United States of America and their Western allies. America has stationed a lot of warships in the Middle East to support Israel, and they have been very clear that any attack on Israel, especially from Iran, will meet stiff resistance from the U.S. So you cannot divert the U.S. from the Israeli conflict, and it has given a lot of boost to Netanyahu. So when Netanyahu and the Israelis are backing, yes.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but I've been trying to get your attention. Dr. Malek, do you think that the Prime Minister has played into what is supposedly a bigger picture in the Middle East? That it is not out of place. It's not, a haphazard guess by these militant groups in the Middle East to attack at the same time. And the fact that Israel is retaliating these attacks, don't you think this was the original plan in the first place? Because these groups thought that they could take on Israel and eventually annihilate the whole nation.
Well, like I said earlier, don't forget that the entire Arab world fought with Israel in 1973, and Israel became victorious. Also, don't forget that the demand of the Hezbollah is for Israel to immediately cease fire before they can stop shooting rockets into Israel. The Houthis also made similar demand. So I agree with you. It's a coordinated onslaught on the state of Israel by the proxies in that axis. Okay, so it's a coordinated attack on the state of Israel, and Israel is responding. Israel cannot sit down until its whole population is annihilated. Don't forget that one of the rockets from the Hezbollah landed in a school and killed children playing in the playground. This was some months ago. And Israel cannot watch and allow Hezbollah to continue to shoot these rockets. Let me inform you that Hezbollah has a potential of shooting ballistic missiles that can go up to 500 kilometers into Israel. And these projectiles are a threat to the existence of Israel. And if you see all the bombings that Israel is carrying out in Hezbollah, they are targeting these rockets, these projectiles, and all the missiles that Iran is giving to Hamas to attack Israel. So Hamas is poised with 50,000 strong army. The Hezbollah are poised to launch a major onslaught on Israel. And the only way Israel can wriggle out of the stronghold of this organization is to go on the offensive, to go on an attack. And I think Israel is succeeding. With the death of Nasrallah, the death of Haniyeh, the death of several commanders, Mohammed Deif in Gaza, and several other top hierarchy of both Hezbollah and Hamas, Israel is taking the war to their doorsteps. Right. And unless the international community take proactive measure, Israel will continue this offensive.
Dr. Chukwunari, let's bring you in here. Hezbollah commander, as Dr. Omale has rightly pointed out, Hassan Nasrallah was confirmed killed on Friday. His replacement was killed just hours later. There's the shortest tenure for any militant leader. It's a huge blow to the organization. Iran has vowed a retaliation. Hezbollah says it will also retaliate. Has Israel played into the hands of the Middle East? And, you know, what do you think would really be an impact of a response from the part of Lebanon and possibly from the part of Iran without, you know, any of these figures as a contact in these countries?
The October attack on Israel was not planned one day. It was planned, hatched, and authorized from Tehran, and then coordinated between southern Lebanon, controlled by Hezbollah. By the way, Hezbollah have MPs. Hezbollah is the political authority in southern Lebanon. And then, of course, executed through Hamas. And it was no coincidence that Hamas struck on the 7th, and on the 8th, Hezbollah struck. So Hamas struck Israel from its southern border, and then Hezbollah struck Israel from this northern border. And of course, the Houthis were there to weigh in. And of course, you have the jihadists, you know, the Shia militias from Syria and Iraq also weighing in their attacks. And they are just targeting the only Jewish nation in the world. One only. What's the population of one small Jewish nation in the world? You want to annihilate them? Okay, now going to your question, I needed to give us a historical context. You know, now Nasrallah has been taken out. How did he get taken out? He would have been taken out long ago, but Israel waited to get enough intelligence to make sure that an entire generation of people who have been brainwashed from Tehran to attack Israel, to run Hezbollah, they were listening to their conversation. You see, and when they had enough intelligence, then when it was time, he would have been taken out long ago. When it was time to take him out, the pagers were sabotaged. For them to, they had to put out their pagers. For them to put out their pagers, who can take out the pagers out of use could also put it to other use. They've been listening to their conversation. And from the pagers, they took out the radio communication. Of course, for them to be able to take out their radio communication, the person who has capacity to take it out of use also has capacity to put it to use. So they know all their conversations. So they destroyed their communication network, and they had no choice than to come together to see face to face. But they could no longer use their mobile phone because Nasrallah has told them never to use their mobile phone because of the beladen experience. So they resorted to pagers. Their pagers were sabotaged. They resorted to radio. It was taken off. The only option they had was to meet face to face. They all gathered.
I want us to
in
move.
Southern Peru.
Yeah,
and then they were taking out an entire generation of Hezbollah leaders were taken out. And then the person you are talking about, who was taken out today, Sunday, and they don't know who is next. The cousin, Hassan, who has been touted to be his replacement, nobody has seen him. And if you look at the meeting convened by the Ayatollah Khamenei regime in Iran, you can see it was held in a basement. He's hiding. So I think we are looking at what will Israel do next? Who is next? Is it? Well, how about? Like, are we thinking about the main? See, these are all processes. My worry is what will happen to the the aftermath of what is Israel may do to the government, the regime in Iran. It does not stop now.
As we close,
world leaders should stop Iran right now, because I won't be surprised if the leadership structure. I'm talking about leadership structure. I'm not talking about the president of Iran. I'm talking about the cabals, Ayatollah Khamenei and his. It could be taken out as well.
Dr. Chukwunaru,
you recall that when hold on, I need to make this point. You recall that the force behind Hezbollah and Hamas attempted to attack Israel. They did. And what was the Israeli response? Israeli hit the Soviet-style missiles defense system that was installed to safeguard their nuclear plants. It was taken off. What makes you think that system technology? Sorry.
We're pressed for time. I just wanted to get from both of you very quickly, from you, Dr. Chukwunaru, who takes responsibility for the number of people who have died in Lebanon because of the Israeli strikes?
Tehran.
Dr. Omale?
Clearly, the leadership of Hezbollah takes responsibility. There's no mincing words, because when you mix with civilians and you carry out your operations from civilian areas, definitely there will be collateral damage. So it's not as if the Lebanese or the Hamas have operational areas that are secluded from civilian residential areas. If you look at where most of the meetings, where most of the projectiles, missiles are being fired at Israel from, there are areas in southern Lebanon. There are several densely populated areas, right. And there's no way Israel will strike those areas without collateral damage. So you could put the blame squarely on the foot of Hezbollah or Hamas, as the case may be, because of the way they are operating. Operating from schools, operating from children's playgrounds, and so on. So it is clear that the civilian population is supposed to rise up against these organizations and clearly isolate them so that they cannot be victims of Israeli attack.
Thank you, gentlemen. Dr. Adoyi Omale, Thank you so much for joining us on Diplomatic Channel, Dr. Charles Chukwunaru. Thank you for joining us on Diplomatic Channel.
So, Amarachi, before I go,
Thank you for having
I
me.
want people to understand that Hezbollah and Gaza are acting the script of Tehran.
Okay. This will be a discussion
And then when you
on
talk about, sorry, one more thing, this is a time to liberate Lebanon from Tehran. Hezbollah and Hamas are not different from the Ayatollah Khamenei jihadist Shia government in Tehran. It's also time to liberate Tehran.
Thank you. Thank you for your
The administration in Iran has to go.
Thank you. Thank you for your thoughts, Dr. Chukwunaru. Thank you, gentlemen, once again. This is where we end the program this week. I'd love to read your thoughts. Send them to any of the social media handles showing on your screen, or leave them under the video on YouTube. I'm Amarachi Ubani. I'll see you next time.